feel are representatives of the visions and goals of this project's ed spec. I want to be clear, and it's been talked about, that while the ed spec is nearing completion, it does remain a work in progress, and minor adjustments and refinements are expected and normal to the process. As previously reported, that the ed specs will be reviewed by the board on the 12th and hopefully approved on the 9th. So the important message here is that what you're going to see is reflective of what's in those ed specs.
All right. So, as Mr. Booz mentioned, we have a first draft tonight of 3 options, 2 additional renovations and 1 new solution. Just to get everybody up to speed a little bit, a lot of this starts with what we learned at our visioning session. So I brought this slide up just to sort of give everyone more background on the outcome of visioning. And this one diagram pretty much sums up what we talked about. It's called the relationship diagram. Did everyone see here? So this is basically a diagram of the spaces in the building, whether it's new or an ad reno, and all the spaces with relationships to one another, and how the facility could be organized. Okay, and the major components of it are that you'll see these blue circles. They're clusters of classrooms. So the blue are classrooms, the green are science. There's a breakout space, collaboration space in the middle of it. So this organization says there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these clusters. So this is largely the academic section of the facility, in whatever form it takes. Then we have sort of the community zone. Can everybody hear me back there? So now we have the community zone where you have the auditorium, cafeteria, gymnasium, and what we sort of labeled as Main Street, connecting a lot of this together. And you'll see this big, large heart. This is the learning commons, and that's meant to represent the center of the school, the heart of the school. So from that, you have the fields, you have parking, you have entries, and other miscellaneous components of it. But largely, this is the academic area, this is the community area. This dashed line represents sort of the security zone. So where public may interface here, but not travel through the facility, okay? So that's just a quick background of where we stand. I dug back really quick also to remind people, this was from a previous presentation. I'm not sure if it's from a statement of needs or not, but these are ideal learning environments that came from the Harvard seminar that many of the administration went to. Here are some of the items that are desirable for ideal learning. Light, flexibility, independence, collaboration, reflection, creativity, exhibition, and joys. Just some topics that you want to think about when you're trying to take that relationship diagram and make a facility out of it, okay? So, here is the relationship diagram that it's our roadmap. And let's take one little cluster and blow it up. And based on the work we've done thus far with the space uses, and working with the administration, we've determined the population size and needs. We're going to cluster these in 6 clusters, each having 7 classrooms, 2 science rooms sharing a prep room. We have small group learning, a couple small group learning, almost like conference rooms, one larger than the other. A teacher prep area that is central to all the classrooms. Some support space for the teachers, toilets and storage. Student toilets we're envisioning within the cluster so the students don't have to walk to the outside the cluster to go use the restroom. And then once you get outside the cluster, this is sort of the doors to the cluster. This would get mixed up a bit. There's a lot of uses that we can put just outside the cluster that are shared between clusters. So some things could be tutorial rooms. I think we have 3 of those. There's some special ed learning centers. I think 2 of those. So we're going to try and sprinkle some of those spaces between the clusters. So that's the blow up of what one of these might be. There'll be 6 of them in our facility. So let's move on to concept A. Many of the people in this room have seen the diagram we've been showing at some of the local schools, at the open house at the high school. We took that idea and we took our knowledge of the real spaces that need to happen and plugged it into that diagram to see if it's still valid. And many of the pieces are still valid, but we made some adjustments. So let me walk you through what this says. This diagram says, let's keep the let me orient everyone first. This is Route 4 down here. Okay, this pink is the existing 1928 building. Okay, the existing, this is the old gym, which is called the old gym over here. This says, let's keep the core that touches the 1928 building, and from this point over, to knock down the one-story sprawling additions over time, all of these. So this is what we'll keep. And from here on over, with the exception of the newer 2003 wing, remove these classrooms. And let's see what happens. We take and renovate much of this, and we, instead of the one-story sprawling classrooms, we add a 3-story new academic wing, all composed of these new clusters, okay? So this is 3 stories, and that's 3 stories. And they're connected in the middle with the new learning commons, which, again, is the heart of the school, right in the middle of the track. And right at that crosshair between the clusters is the learning commons. We have this gallery that we're calling a big main street. You come in on the east side to the administration area and travel through the academic wing all the way down, and you connect essentially the auditorium and new gymnasium. Back up for a second. This line represents right here the northern end of the existing gym. So everything from this line north over here, this is where the big hill starts back here. All of that is new. So a new auditorium with a supporting theater within the existing gym. We have the volume in the existing gym right here. Small studio theater, new auditorium, opposite one another. And then we have a new gymnasium opposite we're going to keep the auxiliary gym where it is right now. And we'll have that opposite there. Between the two, you have the support space for band and choral associated with the auditorium. At the end of our gallery here, we have the new tech ed wing. This is an addition as well. So you can have the shops on the end. Robotics will be in there too. And stacked above this, you'll see on the next slide, is art. So what we have is sort of a art, tech ed feature at the end of this long gallery. Now, at the beginning, as you enter, what would happen is you come in, and if you were coming to guidance, for instance, you go to the next slide, you could come up some stairs and go to guidance and never get mixed with the student population. So a lot of the public would not have to travel through the building. We also plan for the alternate high school to move into the 2003 wing. They can have their own separate entry. And this right now is reserved for lockers. We have the locker rooms up there now, but we could expand on that if we chose to do so. The Board of Ed is planned to move into the 1928 building in this scenario. We have kitchen, servery accessed from the receiving over here. This solution also takes off the existing stage. So the stage currently is up here. We took that off to provide service, the kitchen servery into the cafeteria, which now is almost one big open, not a corridor, but it's part of your circulation system of tables that leads right into the learning commons. You have a cafe here. You have the amphitheater as well that climbs up to the next story. And in between here, we have all our application labs, maker spaces, and I've already described the pods. But one important feature of these pods is also to take advantage of a lot of the daylight and the views that this site does have to offer. But this, we're oriented this way, you have a great view down towards the Farmington River, and here out towards the brand new turf field that lives somewhere. So let me just move quickly through these. Upstairs, identical cluster layouts. We sprinkled the Edge Studio in here, which is multimedia studio, some more application labs. Here are some big stairs. I'll show you this slide about this in a minute, but it's sort of our amphitheater that leads down into the learning commons. It's a big double-story volume. Gallery space. You can look to open to below. You can get to the mezzanine level of the auditorium. Here's art. Here's the mezzanine level of the studio theater. Water bed is its own animal up here. Upper level, more Board of Ed third level. We're learning as we start programming Board of Ed. We'll get into this later, but we have more than enough space in this building right now. Probably won't occupy all 3 floors, but we'll keep working on that. Third level of the clusters, simple circulation. There's an opportunity for a green roof and even an opportunity for an outdoor terrace if we choose to do so. So, quickly, that's A. Luke's going to take over and see what it means on the site, and we'll go through that next.
Thank you. So starting with, just to familiarize, the white area here was the portion of the existing building that we're looking to renovate, whereas the cream colored would be the additions that would be added on, so it would be new construction attached to it. And you can see that Board of Ed area would be here. This is the 2003 addition that's currently there. What we looked at was preserving a few things on site that we know were recently constructed, which was the tennis courts, the synthetic field, so your tennis courts here, the new field back here, the field house or concession building that's there, and then trying to minimize, but also separate parent bus drop-off, trying to minimize some of the conflicts that happen right now during drop-offs and pickups on the site. So what we looked at first was the main entry to the building would be here. So we looked to create as a separate parent drop-off and a separate bus drop-off here. So bus drop-off would have this loop. Parents would come up, they'd be able to stack and then drop off here, come out. And one of the things we looked to propose at this intersection here was it would be signed and designated as buses would have the right of way. So when parents or students are leaving, so a lot here are coming out, but the buses are being displaced, those buses would be able to leave all in a row, make it down, and then go out so that they can make their dismissals and then be on to the next schools right after. When they get held up here on this site because it goes every other or parents are getting mixed in, it can hold them up and then it sets them behind for the rest of the afternoon. So what we would propose to help with that is the buses would have plenty of room to be able to stack and pick up, and then they, when leaving, would have the right of way so that they would be able to leave all in one row, and it would allow for stacking from here back for the parents or students waiting too, so they don't get in the way of anyone trying to come in or the buses coming out. We've also looked to do is realign this slightly and add some parking that would be directly in front of the proposed Board of Education building so that they would have their own separate entry and some parking. And then also keeping parking off to the side here, which would act potentially for staff, other parking, but it would also allow for deliveries, things to robotics, and that which is that piece back here that Paul mentioned. What this plan does allow is that the top part of the site, it allows us to basically leave your athletic fields intact and not have to spend significant money by relocating or moving those. One of the things we would have to do, and that's what's shown in the blue dots, is we do have to provide accessible access to all of your fields. So the upper fields we would have to provide there. We know that those are constantly rotated, so we'd have to provide a loop around the outside. We would have to address the bleachers and press box on both sides of your track and field to make sure that those are fully accessible and meet all of the requirements for those. And then also the dugouts that are in play for the baseball field would have to be renovated as part of this to make sure that we meet accessibility. And then from there, we have to make sure we have the egress out of those areas. One of the things we also looked at the ability is to fit some additional parking behind that 2003 edition off to the end, but it would also be behind that restroom concession area so that you'd have some parking directly back there for handicap, those that are parking for the alternate education there. When you do have a sporting event, that could potentially be where you can park ambulances or trainers that come. If you have media, referees, those kind of things could be designated to give you a little bit more parking closer to that back area. Again, with maintaining parking around the tennis courts and then having these 3 main lots, which could be designated a number of different ways: staff, parking, student parking, visitor parking, and those could kind of be worked out in this area. Oh, I should go back to one of the things you will note too on all of these with talking with those staff is this red, you will see that is a secondary exit out for emergency purposes that's been brought up and we've looked at. So what it would be is connecting an extension off the existing road that's here and tying that in. So emergency vehicles, or shall there ever be an accident or something that congests and we can't get out here, having a bypass exit that allows people to get off. That would be designated on, the goal would be that would be gated off so it wouldn't be in use unless an emergency.
Option B. This one looks at keeping again the Board of Ed here and much of the same area to be renovated a little bit differently. But taking that gallery spine, instead of running it the east-west direction, study it looking, going to the north-south direction. And take the clusters and orient them towards the east with perhaps a common courtyard outside. What this does is, if you look back on this site plan, instead of taking the parking over here, it actually uses some of the parking by going into the hillside. So let's walk through this plan a little bit. Everyone would enter the main entry here, administration up front, gallery space connecting the clusters, 3-story clusters again. This situation completely divorces the school from 2003 building. There's no connection here. This could be a field house with the alternate high school. So the gallery connects the cafeteria, the cafe, learning commons, trying to get a lot of the activity off of this spine in both of these solutions. Within this cluster, you have the Edge Studio adjacent to the learning commons. You have the Friends Room adjacent to the cafeteria. Again, the kitchen and servery would feed here. I envision all this being open and glass and lots of daylight coming in. So from this main spine, you have these sort of feeder corridors that take you deeper into the building and run sort of east-west. Going down this corridor, this gets into the gymnasium with the auxiliary gym, and we have some fitness room up here. Band, choral adjacent to the stage and auditorium. Opposite is the studio theater. So again, this is the sort of the art, performing arts wing. Next to tech ed, again on top we're stacking art. And another thing worth mentioning, you'll see in the site plan, but this is the public entry for students, visitors. We also propose this being a after-hours entry and staff entry that lead right into the building, right into a central lobby that gets to the gymnasium and the auditorium without necessarily block off the clusters and not have people traveling to the classroom. So working down. Towards the tech ed, we have applications lab. This could be the engineering maker space. This could be computer science. Again, mechanical service, custodial on this end, receiving to the kitchen. We go upstairs. Guidance stacked above administration, so the public does not have to travel through the classes to go visit guidance. The gallery is the north-south spine feeding into the clusters. This is the amphitheater going down into the learning commons. This is the secondary entrance for after hours, staff, the auditorium mezzanine, and the studio theater mezzanine, art here as well. So when we get to the site plan, we'll show you, but actually you can enter this building either by bus and cars. You'll see a turnaround here, enter the site. But this dashed line represents actually a bridge that connects to the second level for the upper level parking that's carved halfway into the hillside up here. So you'll see that in a moment, be clear. But you can enter here into a secure vestibule, work your way down either by elevator or stair into this common lobby where this is administration. Everybody gets their credentials right here before anyone walks into the school. So you can enter from this level or from getting dropped off here. Or you see the site plan coming up. You can park up here, come over a bridge, and traverse down into the main level to get to the next bridge. Moving upstairs, there's the spine again. It actually stop here, but it essentially connects these two clusters, elevator here, and there's potential for a main roof here as well, and or that.
So once again, with this site plan, we try to keep in mind keeping some of the existing features on the site, the tennis courts, the field, the concession building, and then also looking to separate the parent and bus drop-offs and work within that one point of entry, which as Paul mentioned in this site plan would be here. So one of the challenges we found was that trying to put a separate bus drop-off and parent drop-off there, there is a steep slope that happens here. So that's where Paul mentioned what would happen is buses would come up, they loop through here, they climb, and they drop off up on the upper area of where your fields are now. And then it would be bridged into that second story. So they would actually enter on the second story and then have a stairwell or could to go downstairs to where the main offices or enter through. Whereas the student drop-off would be here, which would be at the main entry at the lower level, and it would happen between the 2003 edition and the school entry in this area. What it does create is a nice student pedestrian type corridor between the buildings and in and out without any traffic or anyone who parks here having any traffic flow between the two. So as you see now out front, which was also kind of part of the first scheme I showed, people park and then they have to cross where both of the drop-offs are to get from those parking lots into the building, which we have now. It works, but we try and avoid that if we can make that work on a site to completely separate the two. So this does allow us to do that. Again, even the tennis courts. And then our thought was, once buses are dropped off, they come back around, we'd look at introducing the same kind of philosophy there, where buses would have the right of way out. This option, as you can see, is very tight on the site. It's obvious why this was pushed up here, which then looks at, we do have to look at renovating the 3 fields that are up there. As you can see, they do shrink in size slightly. What we've also looked at is because we are flattening that plateau off, taking some of that material to fill the back corner there, potentially create a 4th field. Again, all of them would be smaller than what you have now, but it would create that use of a 4th field, rather than haul that material off-site, which would cost you money. Use it to fill some of this back slope and create a 4th field there. And then again, lastly, like we mentioned before, providing all of the access, the handicap access to all of your existing fields, redoing your press box, bleachers, things of that nature without the site. We've also kept a small amount of parking and deliveries, which we'd be able to have over here, and then again, some parking for that Board-of-Ed use within the existing building.
Okay, last option, C, which is a completely new facility. And what we discovered when we were laying this out is you take Frank's diagram, flip it upside down. It accurately reflects what a new facility could be if we started from scratch. So if you think about these learning clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here, the thought is we could have them in this configuration, all outboard of this gallery. And then as you get deeper into the school, you could have the gymnasium and auditorium and things of that nature, more of the public zone up here. So walking the site with Russ earlier, it's the most advantageous portion of this site is that the views on top of that hill are spectacular. So the thought is, and we'll show you in a moment, that this proposed solution puts the building up on top of where those fields are on top of the hill right now. And the thought is we could dig into the hillside for the lower level and have 2 of the clusters on a low elevation with the gallery and the tech ed coming in low and the mechanical area. And above it, the main level, we start stacking the clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up. So this main level, students and visitors would enter here, come through our gallery space, right, and have all these clusters off the gallery facing south, overlooking the Farmington Valley and the river. So off of this spine, again, you have administration, then you have your learning commons with the cafe, your amphitheater, cafeteria, servery, kitchen, all fed from receiving area. At the very end of the cafeteria, and we could have seating all the way through here, all oriented out towards glass, looking down the hill. And at the end of the gallery, we could have special services with the Friends Room, again, adjacent to the cafeteria for easy access. Art could be stacked above, check at it. As you go upstairs, go back, sorry. As you come in, this is our main entry, but we also have a staff and event entry back here. As Frank was illustrating, we could have our gym and auditorium opposite each other, sharing a lobby. You could have a fitness room that could be used by the community after hours. Band and choral could support the auditorium. Studio theater adjacent to the auditorium again. And in the middle we have maker spaces, some application labs, lockers that support the gymnasium and auxiliary gym. This would all be new, a new auxiliary gym in this scenario. As we go upstairs, we have the guidance would be stacked above the administration over here. It's a fairly concise circulation system up to the third level with the clusters, bridges looking down into the learning commons, amphitheater stair, going down into the cafeteria. Again, everything's oriented to the views. We have the Egg Studio, more application labs here. Potential future expansion, if we chose to do so. That could be something we could think about. Potential green roof. And then this is the upper level of the auditorium, mezzanine, and theater. Here's just an example of what this amphitheater could look like in any of these, not just the new, but it's using the vertical circulation as sort of program space and collaboration space, so it's doing double or triple duty. It could be very nice in any of the three scenarios that we'd like to talk about. Either it goes into learning commons or into the cafeteria perhaps.
So as Paul mentioned, again, we would be keeping the very front, which is this 1928 addition, which would be used for the potential for Board of Education. And we've looked to place the new building. These are those clusters, the wings that he talked about. The new entry would come off of here and then walk that galley space. So what it would allow for is if you were coming in and you were entering to park or to drop a student off, you'd be able to come up through the site, come through, drop off, and then you'd come back down through. So it allows plenty of room for stacking as people are dropping off that, and it completely separates them from the buses, which would come up. They would come through here, which in a sporting event would allow for other teams to drop off their athletes along this road. They progress up. We're looking at this area where it changes from green to the yellow. That would be a buses or delivery only from that point forward. So this main drive would be used to access the fields and that Board of Ed. But from here only would be for buses to be able to come up. They'd make their drop off, swing around, and then exit back out. And it allows for deliveries for cafeteria, the kitchen, and then also those tech spaces, all to that left side of it. And also leaves us room along here to continue with the screening for those neighbors. We want to make sure that we're not pushing right up against them. And then it allows us to have some parking out along here for students, faculty, so small area parking over here, where we can also put things like dumpsters and that with it. As we come down here, one of the things we didn't mention through all these schemes is kind of thinking long-term for how we would construct this. This scheme, looking at it very quickly, would allow us to leave this lower school and parking as is, while the upper school and parking and drop-offs are constructed. So we would have minimal impact between the two. And what we'd lose is those athletic fields during construction. At the end, looking at if this building were kept, much like Paul had talked about before, as a field house type use, the locker rooms are there, things like that, and you continue to use it, it actually falls right now within your athletic field. So your main stadium field with your synthetic turf field here. Again, we redo the bleachers and the press box to meet ADA. We'd be able to leave your baseball field as is, and we'd incorporate 2 new multi-sport fields, which are regulation size to be used, and then a smaller field for practice also within there. We're able to leave your tennis courts, which were newly constructed there as well, and then have some ancillary parking for that Board of Education building, additional parking over here for athletics, things like that, and then also give the ability for views coming off of that school, because it will be set up over top of the other buildings that are here. Again, we have that emergency access out as well through it. One of the things we're not showing is we played with this new scheme in a couple other areas on the site as well to see how well it would work. We tried to work with fitting it and taking the existing parking that's there and trying to build a new building there and meet the existing. Unfortunately, what we're finding is with the program and the size, it didn't fit. So we ended up impacting with your existing tennis courts would have to be relocated or you would lose them. We ended up shifting the whole baseball field up, which meant the whole baseball field had to be rebuilt. And we were very tight to your existing building there, as well as possibly impacting this portion of the building by not allowing us enough separation for fire code to build that new. So we kind of crossed that off the table internally as it's really not a feasible option. Nor is this area back here, because we know you just built that brand new field there and we don't want to touch that, which led us up here. And we felt it actually works very well once we started playing with it up in that, other than it would displace some of those athletic fields during the time of construction for it.
I'd like to mention one more thing back on the site. The big takeaway for me on this is that when you arrive on campus at this point, what you'd see is sort of all the greenscape for the fields in the foreground. And from this point, looking up on the hill, you would see a new facility, almost as if it were overlooking a college campus. I mean, that's the vision you would have of the facility, and all of it oriented out with glass down over the campus proper. So that's the big takeaway for me from this study on this one. And that's it. Questions and answers on any of this?
Thank you, Paul.
I have a question. How many square feet do we have today, and how many will we have once your expiration is that last option?
Question. Right now, the school's about 218,000 square feet, and we're working through that right now on this. And this is all based on a new building. Only, I think we're at 271. 271 versus 18.
And that's driven by your work with the programming.
Program incorporating all the 21st century skills, effort, all the visioning, comparing what's here now and what's needed to deliver education moving forward, the administration.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the presentation of the three concepts, I'll call it at this point in time. Over the next, I think probably 2 weeks, I think we're trying to settle this out on December 14th on our meeting as to what we take in all the ideas from the community, take in all the ideas from the Board of Education and the Town Council. Those will be our three big presentations over the next couple of weeks. And then arrive somewhere on the 14th with a lot of ideas, a lot of suggestions, and then we will weigh all those and give direction to our design team to incorporate them in the final concept plans that are scheduled for December 30th.
Bill?
Dan?
Just so I understand it, the reimbursable square footage, and that's through the state, is 228,998.
Correct.
And all three of these options come in with 271. Is that how you programmed it?
Well, all these are very conceptual. None of them have an accurate square footage associated with it, but at the end of the day, that's where we need to be in any of these scenarios. It's whatever that sheet ends up being.
So there's going to be a component of non-reimbursable square feet.
That's right.
Based upon your projection of the needs of the school in terms of what we need to do to meet the criteria of the reports that have been issued and the deficiencies that we've seen, and also the input that we've had from staff and others.
That's correct.
I have a Bill, just follow up on that. when we look at that number that's above the 228, and we say it's non-reimbursable, are there components of it that could be reimbursable? Maybe not under that clear-cut percentage that the state allows for a specific amount of square feet, but aren't there things within that overage that could possibly be reimbursable? Lighting, heat, I mean, all of those kind of things that, or no?
Not quite sure how to answer that. Potentially, but it also plays into, since we are, the state is changing their methods, the new method versus old method. I'm not sure, we would have to visit with the state to see what that means. We're not there yet.
Okay.
Gene, something just to add to that, we could apply for a space standard waiver, which would allow for the building to be oversized. And we have seen instances where specialized programs, like the Friends program, like other, the technical programs, the wood shop, that don't necessarily fall into the square foot per student that the state offers. And they could allow us to exceed the threshold and still maximize our reimbursement, but it would be a conversation with the state to have them buy into that.
Okay, I remember that presentation that we've heard a couple of times. Do you mind another question? When you look at, and I don't know if you're there yet, but when you look at these three plans that you presented to us, and you look at enrollment, you know, wherever the enrollment goes, you know, we're trying to build and look at something way down the road. Is this, are you able to look out? I mean, I know our enrollment report goes out, what, 10 years? Are you able to look out and say, I see in one of the plans that you had a space for adding space if needed, but we're hoping that that's not going to be in the big picture. Are you able to look at enrollment? Is enrollment in the back of your head as you plan these out?
We're charged with designing for the enrollment that was in the report.
Okay.
But as we were developing the new solution, there was immediate opportunity to think about that. And we haven't done that with the ad rentals yet, but we could if we think that's a need. It just sort of fell in place when we started looking at that new solution.
I knew that was a big question, but I just was wondering. And just real quick, when you look at the field space that you were talking about, I think it was in your second plan you were able to add a fourth field up on top. But I just wanted to just say out loud, that's a problem in town. So as we look at field space and things like that, I'm not sure if the new project or the first project allowed for more field space, but I'm hoping that that's always taken into consideration.
Yeah, and I should, you know, that second scheme where we added the fourth, it reduced the size of the other three. So it wasn't keeping those full-size fields you have up there, plus adding it was those actually shrunk slightly smaller. It would allow the smaller sports, field hockey, lacrosse, which are narrower, a much narrower soccer, football practice, but it wouldn't allow you to get a full-size type varsity or a true JV soccer with up there. So
I was looking at K-12.
But we could look at any of the options where originally we didn't impact up there, if the charge was to look at adding to.
I love the cluster spot. Classrooms.
Okay. A couple questions. Was there any consideration taken on the reno to new on phasing? And if it's feasible, because I got to imagine if we're looking at a school of 271,000 square feet, we're at 228 now, we're going to start eating into that to renovate, and we're going to have to put the kids somewhere, to put it plainly. Was there any thought put into that on those two concepts, or is that more something the construction manager would take a look at now that these have been put out there?
That's something, you know, we'll weigh in and we'll look at it, we'll come up with a basic idea and how long it would take and how we would actually build it, we renovate it while the kids are here. Whether that's portables, whether that's getting creative, you know, we're gonna have to look at some of those issues.
Okay.
It will affect your overall timeline of the project.
And the cost estimate as well, or at least the range of costs? Okay. And my second question is, we're looking at, 42,000 square feet more. Is that because is that inclusive of the Board of Ed actually moving in? that is outside of that. So obviously, these guidelines are put forth by the state. And when you're doing this exercise, where is the extra square footage coming from? Are we asking for something that is heavier than the state standard? Meaning the auxiliary gym, are most schools doing too? And I know we have it now, and I'm not picking that, just one example. Or are we adding classrooms because there's lower kids per class, that kind of stuff? And when you guys went through this, where's the extra square footage mainly coming from? Or is it bits and pieces?
You want to speak to that?
Sure. So I think the academic core areas, you mentioned one, is that the state uses 25 students per classroom. We typically have about 20 students in our classroom. They also recommend 900 square feet per classroom. We did bring that down to 810 square feet because we do have less students in our classroom. So we try to deal with that by bringing down that square footage. I think the idea of creating these clusters and these smaller workrooms certainly have an impact. So if you looked at our current academic core areas, it's approximately 20,000 more square feet just in the academic core area. So that's a big, that's one of the drivers. I think special education is another. Right now, we just don't have adequate space for special education. A good example of that is, this is the only school in our district that really has no private OT-PT space for our students, or they do OT-PT in front of other students, which is just not something that is a good thing for a school to have, and especially at the high school level. So, we're putting in space for that. We're enlarging some of the special education spaces because we have a very comprehensive Friends program, so our students that are in special education with more significant needs often have two other typical peers with them. That requires more space. So it definitely is a programmatic piece to it. We also have created specialized programs here so that our students with more significant needs are educated here in Farmington rather than having them outplaced in more segregated schools that don't give students a comprehensive high school experience. That does, take up space. So special education probably doubles in its space, and because of that. Another area that I think would be a driver that's more significant. Some of our tech ed and art spaces, we are increasing quite a bit. Again, on a programmatic space, we're bringing robotics here. That was part of the statement of need. Right now, they're off-site. Doesn't really make sense to have that off-site. It should be part of our high school. The culinary program, we have to bring up to ADA compliance. Right now, we have a culinary space, but it's not ADA compliant, so we can't put a program in there. And we are increasing the shop areas. They're about, I think, 1,000 square feet. We're bringing them up to 1,500 square feet to really be more aligned to the program. Right now, they're in very small spaces, given the program itself. Music is another driver of increased space. Right now, it's both an auditorium that we're suggesting and a drama space. Both of them have different needs and different acoustic needs, and so given those needs, we are suggesting that as part of that too is a scene shop, maker space, so that our students in shop right now, they're trying to do the shop curriculum, and then they're also trying to build sets for our plays. We're having a play this week. So PE, we actually put this in. This is more than we have right now. I think when we're given the feedback from our teachers and also just from the community, the gym space we have right now it has to be expanded even in the newer gym because it's not completely ADA compliant. The auxiliary gym, same thing. So we have to expand both of them, and we thought if we're expanding the gym, the newer gym, suggesting a double gym, which many school districts of our size and an athletic program do have a double gym and an auxiliary. We did did take out some additional space that other schools have, just because we have been going through an exercise of trying to reduce the initial spaces that faculty had said they needed, so we have been reducing it over time.